Thank you, Bot. Hi, folks. This is I'm not recording podcast. Okay. Hey, welcome to AsyncAPI meeting. The usual one that we have every 2 weeks. This meeting is being recorded, so just be aware that you're gonna be published to YouTube. We have 3 topics on the agenda. And looking on the list of people that joined the meeting, nobody new on the meeting, but before we jump into those 3 topics, anyone has something like super important to discuss now so we can leave the meeting and you don't have to stay for the entire meeting? Anybody? Oh. Yeah. Fran, you want to say something about your king, ex-king? No? Okay.
It will not happen again, I promise.
Okay. So there are the first topic is actually you, Fran. So I'm gonna make a co-host if you want to share. Do you wanna? Will you show something? Like share?
Yeah, I'm gonna show my screen. Share my screen.
So I'm just Fran will continue. The first topic on the agenda is requested by Mark. Hello, Mark. And
hello, Mike.
Hey, Fran. Hey, Lucas.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a question from Mark, like if it's possible to get some updates like on the roadmap where we are. And yeah, Fran, on to you.
Thank you. So, well, thanks, Mark, for bringing in the topic, because yeah, this roadmap it's great to have a roadmap, but not great if we don't update it, right? Or we don't update the status. This is something that I promise I'll find some time soon, TM, trademark, to improve it so people can see real time how we're progressing here. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna do it manually. I'm just gonna give you an update, and so you'll know where we are right now. Okay. So the now column, you were asking for the now column. So what's going on the now column? Okay.
So just I guess a little more context, right? Like I can't, I'm obviously not plugged in and day out to what's going on in AsyncAPI. So I saw this roadmap, a few weeks ago, and then I was digging into it the other day, and I was like, hey, like a lot of these things seem really cool. I don't feel like I know what's going on with a lot of them. I know maybe some bits and pieces about some of them, and I'm sure there are a lot of other AsyncAPI community members in the same boat as me. Like we usually keep up with like 1 or 2 or 3 things that we're most interested in. So it would be good to hear overall, where we're at with the overall roadmap. And so I specifically called out now because that's obviously like what it's currently working on and what we can expect next. But depending on how much time you want to spend on that, like obviously I'd love to hear about like what next priorities and stuff are as well.
Yeah.
So
sure. So in terms of priorities, I think it is what it is there, like what you see there. It's we don't have like an order of tasks. We actually don't have tasks. So what you see there are not tasks. This is it's an outcome-based roadmap. It's the name of this kind of roadmap. So it's not a sequence of tasks. Another way to see it is that if we expand this, things like solutions, right? The ones in blue. At some point, whenever this is really finished, you'll see a lot of tasks listed here, like the ones you're seeing here on gray, dark gray, or even black, I'll say. And that's where you can see the task. Okay, but this roadmap is to look at the future a little bit above tasks themselves, right? So it's about outcome. What is an outcome? So let me just check if it's here. Yeah. So it says an outcome is the result of implementing a solution and represents a specific milestone towards our goals and therefore our vision. If you're into OKRs, an outcome is a key result. It's the same thing. Okay, so this is like in OKRs, this is a KR, right? So These are like, to summarize, these are like milestones that we want to achieve to arrive to our goals, right? The 3 goals that we have listed here. Why? Because if we get into these goals, if we succeed in accomplishing these goals, then we'll satisfy the vision, right? That's the whole point of this, right? So this goes like a inverted funnel, if you want. So it's like the vision starts, then it starts with 3 goals, and then each goal might have different outcomes. An outcome usually is based on user needs, on user problems that we want to fix. In this case, usually is developer problems that we want to fix. So, for instance, that's why it might read weird at first. If you're thinking about in terms of tasks, it's like, yeah, this is too generic, right? For a task, it's too generic, of course. And it's not really defining what do we have to do. Instead, what it's defining is we're defining the result of a bunch of tasks that we'll have to do in the future, right? So where do we want to arrive, right? So in this case, it is user is able to focus only on business logic. For this to happen, if we want to make this a reality, like the developer only has to focus, if the developer wants, of course, only in business logic. There are many things that need to happen, right? But at least 2 of them is that we need to improve generator so it generates data models, and we need to make generator support React, because yeah, that's how we improve generator to make better templates. But there are other things, not just that. The confusing part, and I agree with this, is that this is not a complete list of things that we'll have to do, right? So you'll see things popping up here over time in here. Why? And why they're not defined here? We don't want to like very upfront. We don't want to be doing this work of we're gonna do this, and this. Because what happens usually is that whenever we do it, and I can confirm that everybody doing this in the whole world, it's all bullshit. So if you plan for a roadmap beyond, let's say, 4-6 months, it becomes bullshit most of the times, because you don't know how things are going to change. You don't know how things are going, things that you do in the way are going to change the priorities at some point, are going to change not just the priorities, but they're going to change the way you now look at the future. You're gonna solve problems differently. So we don't know what's gonna pop up here. But as soon as there's something popping up that is related to improving this outcome, it's gonna be listed here, right? So the only thing that we can ensure or assure you here is that we're working on this. We're working on this outcome, and because it's in now, it means that it's not finished, right? And it also means, well, let me just a second, because we have people joining. Lukasz, I think, are you co-host? Because I get the request of people joining. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, I am admitting. I also see.
Okay.
Yeah. You can ignore it. I will admit.
Okay. So, so as I was saying, like, this is actually where we're focusing all our efforts. We're focusing all our efforts in making the user being able to focus only on business logic, right? And what are we going to do to make this possible? We decide on the way, right? Like each time we decide, we agree on issues, depending on the discussions on the issues, we keep discussing what's the best way to get there, right? So that's what it means. Similarly, it's impossible to async documentation from code. It's also very related to how like it's very related to the other one. Like people can focus only on business on business logic, but in this case, it's more than the developer, aside from not having to focus on non-business logic. What happens is that we want to automate it. So we want to solve another problem, which is okay. Imagine that I can only focus on the business logic. Cool, but now still have the problem that everybody has, that we have the documentation on one side, we have our code here, and they both tell different stories. So you deploy your code and it's not doing what the documentation says. And if you have documentation, right? So we want to solve that problem as well, as much as possible. And for that, one of the solutions is to create a framework, which I'm working on right now. And another solution is to create plugins for the most common frameworks, like what's it called, this Java Spring Cloud Streams, for instance, right? So create an AsyncAPI plugin for Spring Cloud Stream. If possible, we still have to investigate, right? So in a way that the code will always honor what's in the AsyncAPI file. And if it's not in the AsyncAPI file, it will not work, right? So, and at the same time, it will generate the documentation from the AsyncAPI file. So that way, you always make sure that what's in the code and what's in the documentation, it's both are in sync, right? So these are different ways. Stop me if you have questions. I don't know. I mean, any of you, not just you, Mark. So yeah. I mean, each of these items here, you have descriptions, right? So, and we can discuss there. So happy to follow discussions there. Well, so that's another outcome that people are worried about, which is like, don't know if you're hearing so much the baby. It's disturbing, is it? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, breast milk. It's the magic of the breast milk. So was saying that this is another common problem. People facing this problem, that they want to make sure that whatever ends up in the broker, it's according to their AsyncAPI definition, right? We can do this in many ways. For instance, one of them is with a framework. A framework can validate the message before it gets into the broker. But what if you're not using the framework? Or what if you already have some code base, which is most probably the case for big companies, right? In this case, one option is that we create an event gateway, right? So this validation will happen in a infrastructure piece that will be in the middle between the client and the broker. And the only thing you will have to do is to install the event gateway in your system and change the DNS, right? So your broker is actually the gateway, and then from the gateway you forward messages to the broker, right? So in that way, clients don't need to change their code. It's only a DNS change, right? So yeah, that's one solution. Look at this. The vision and the roadmap are clear. So that's another outcome that we want to improve. And this is done. I mean, this landing page is precisely this thing, but it's not done yet. The whole outcome is not done yet, and you're the proof because you're asking about it. So we need to clarify this. So we need to make it clear, right? So what's next? What do we have to do to make it clearer? Happy to take suggestions. For sure, something that we're going to do at some point is we're going to start listing all the I mean, we were doing an experiment before. That's why you see some things here and not in all of them. But now we're gonna integrate this with all our GitHub repos and issues, and you should start seeing all the GitHub issues listed there.
Yeah, I think that'll be really useful. Yeah, I think that'll be really useful. Like kind of as you go through this, right? Like you're talking about a lot of like what we can do, what we could do, but it's hard to know what is actually being worked on right now, right? Unless I go click on these things, like for example, when I click on the create an event gateway, it looks like somebody is working on that and you have a lead listed there. But then I click on some of the other ones and it's kind of, you know, we could create a plugin for X framework, Y framework, Z framework, but like, is somebody going to start with X framework, or, you know, like that, like who is working on it, or is nobody yet working on it? It's just a plan, right?
Yeah, so actually, yeah, that's probably confusing, because what we move from, the thing that you can move from columns is actually the outcomes. And because this is part of this outcome, it's moved to that column. But yeah, nobody's working on this yet. That's,
okay.
Yeah.
So I think it would be useful, like if you expand the make generator support React, right? It says the task or the feature below that says done. So if once you have the features there, if some of them say done, some of them say in progress, some of them say not started, for example, I think that will make it more
also
clear.
some progress indicator here, like, okay, so this is done, or this is not even started, or that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Fran.
Thanks. I mean, really helpful. So yeah, and then that's another part, which is many companies already have existing documentation and developer portals, and that some of them they created on their own. And so instead of just generating the whole page for your documentation, what we want to offer here is just chunks of this page, right? Like some people only want the message view or the list of channels, or to integrate with their documentation, right? So that's for that we're gonna create. We're actually working on it. I think Magic is working on it right now. So yeah, it's a UI library. Instead of a single React component, we split the React component in many React components, and then it's not only for React but also for other frameworks, right? And so on. I mean, this is what's going on in now. In later, you have things like, like specification and parser are ready to accommodate features and other stuff. I mean, if something is not clear, I would suggest go to each of these and leave comments, and we can have the discussion there. If you want to add something to the roadmap because you think it's missing, something like this is a roadmap that we all do together. So yeah, feel free to suggest. And that's it from my side. Any questions?
Thank you, Fran. Appreciate you taking the time to go through that.
No problem. Thank you.
No other questions to Fran? Okay, so the next topic on the agenda is release 2.1 of the spec. So first of all, I'm gonna share with you a link to a repository where we track the progress. To the GitHub issue. So we are now, I mean, we released, I don't remember, we are pretty productive with the spec releases if it comes to release candidates. We released something today, which is release candidate number 6. No, number 4 for the 2.1 release. Because we merged today a change from Dale to add IBM MQ to the list of the bindings. So looking on all the PRs and their status against the contribution guide, there were 2 additional candidates for 2.1. One is the Anypoint MQ, but it's more complicated than IBM MQ because IBM MQ, yeah, it was easy to handle because the binding itself was added by Richard from IBM, I think a few months ago already. So it was just about adding it to the list in the spec. With Anypoint MQ, it's more complicated because the binding itself is not yet merged. We left some comments with Fran for Gerald, and let's see if then these points can be solved anytime soon before 2.1 happens. And last but not least, it's something that is now super active. It's a proposal from Laurent about extending the examples object in the message. We're extending it with 2 additional properties, optional properties. So the proposal to the spec is already approved. We are just missing the approval on the change in this JSON schema for this spec, and also the parser.js. That's an ongoing discussion on the pull request, but these things are trivial. So like, I'm not going to make any promises, but it really looks like this change is going to go into 2.1 release. If it comes to the automation, Ayush is just doing some fixes on the website side, not blocking the release anyway, but looks like for this 2.1 release, we're going to have like full automation that like after releasing the spec, the document will be automatically published to the website, which is super cool. So yeah, it's scheduled for June, and we hope to not do any release like last day of June. So if examples are solved soon and we clarify what's happening with Anypoint MQ PR, then hopefully 2.1 will go into the wild this week. Any questions from your side regarding 2.1? Oh, okay, cool. And last but not least, what was it? Yeah, just wanted to point out, like the next topic on my personal list of things to do for the community and this and AsyncAPI initiative in general is to make another event about AsyncAPI, like the last time we had last year, AsyncAPI conference. We need to do something this year. Some time ago, I talked with Fran that I'd love to have some hackathon, like the one I participated in with GitHub Actions, that you have like month-long hackathon and people like can hack for an entire month and then show what they did to a committee, and then we just choose the best projects. But of course, an event like classical event as a conference, that's also an option. If there's any interest, I'm happy to work on it. The question is to you, like, what anybody has an opinion here, like about some AsyncAPI event?
Let's do both.
Many people say it. It's a lot of time, but yeah, I mean, it's probably that's something that we're gonna have to do. Anyone already knows that you would love to work with me on organizing the events, or you just want to participate as listeners on? It's pretty cool to work with me. Not many people worked with me in the past, and now some are still alive. You can share it in private later if you're shy. That's fine. But did you ever attend or took part in a hackathon? Because in the past, when I was doing hackathons, I was participating in hackathons. These were usually crazy weekend hackathons, like several hours. Not something that after the hackathon I enjoyed, if it comes to my body and exhaustion. And last year I saw this hackathon for the first time. Like, you have month-long hackathon. Do you have any experience with it? Like, am I just biased by my experience, or?
That was my suggestion for when we did Postman Galaxy last February, which was 3 days event. We did the entire month of January as a hackathon. And the first day of Postman Galaxy, we announced the winners of the hackathon. And I thought it was a great lead up to, it kept us talking about the hackathon as well as the conference throughout the month of January. So it is, I agree, it is much more work, which I'm here to help you with, of course, but they tend to complement each other. So.
Okay, nice. I didn't think that you can actually join them. It makes sense, like you make a summary on the conference.
Yeah, and I will say, like, so I've had a good hackathon experience for like the in-person hackathons where it's over a weekend. I don't think like over the weekend thing will work virtually personally. So I agree, like if you want to do like a virtual global hackathon, you probably need to do kind of like what Ken and them did at Postman, like a full month type thing, so people can do it kind of on their own terms and maybe have a few online office hours and stuff like that. So definitely a lot of planning to go into it, but I think we'll get some value out of it. I'll also say I do think I did like AsyncAPI Conf last year, and so I do think it would be worthwhile doing a similar conference to that as well. So just my 2 cents there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would second that I think the conference would be my priority over the hackathon, because I think right now there's a lot of need for large organizations to understand what async is and have conversations about it. So I think Async Conf would be a great place to make that happen.
Okay, cool. So there's a dedicated channel in our Slack called Events. So I would like encourage you to join, even if you don't want to like participate in organizing, but like validating the ideas, the discussions we have there. That would be awesome if you could join and voice. Like especially that like last year, not sure if you remember when we were organizing AsyncAPI conference, all the proposals we were reviewing with also like independent members of the community. So we definitely will also have to have some volunteers from the entire community, from people that would like to also help us out to choose topics and help at least this way. Any more comments regarding this? No. Anything else you'd like to mention? Because we covered all the 3 topics from the agenda.
I just had a follow-on question, I guess, to the previous topic where you said 2.1 is set to be released in June. I was trying to look, is there a defined release cadence now? Will 2.2 be in like July, or is it once a quarter or once a month? Or
it's not clear if it's 2.2 or 3.0, but it's the cadence is defined. It's always gonna be in June, in September, in January, and June, and September, and January. No, there's something missing.
No, it's April.
April, yeah. June, it's January, April, June, September. It's always the same. we wanted to avoid the holidays and Christmas. So that's why sometimes
okay.
it's every 3 months, every 4 months. But
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and we don't know what's going to be released. It all depends on the content of the release, if it's going to be a major or minor.
Yeah, I know. I know we're kind of looking at some of the binding definitions that are there, and I think Ian was looking at updating the AMQP ones, and we were looking potentially at putting some work into better define some of the MQTT ones, and maybe an SMF, which is the Solace protocol as well. So just a heads up there, but I don't think it'll be in the June release at this point.
No, for sure not.
Yeah.
We can safely say that this release is closed. I will say.
But now at least we have this cadence, right? So like September is also pretty soon, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I can bring that back to the team and be like, hey, we definitely want to get our things in a row to know what's going on before September rolls around.
And we're also and we're of course talking about major and minor, like patch releases. They're going to be released immediately, like bug fixes or something.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be a problem, because since if you read the spec at the beginning, it says that the patch version is for non-normative changes, right? So that's let's say that if you're supporting version 2.1, let's say 2.10, and we release 2.120, okay, it still should work with your tooling, with your tools, right? Because all the changes on the patch releases will be non-normative, mainly editorial fixes and typos and all of this. So yeah, nothing else. And I also wanted to clarify that we don't know what's going to be on the next release, and but we're not stupid, right? And we don't want to be assholes here, and we're not going to be releasing major versions every 3 months, right? So if we foresee that there will be a bunch of breaking changes, and I'm not promoting King here, King's show, breaking changes. So if there are
you just did, by the way.
But I said I'm not, so it's not. So so if we have a bunch of breaking changes that are in the foreseeable future, we of course will hold them, right, and group them into a single major release, right? So you only have to break your code once and not every 3 months, right? Basically, breaking changes.
Any other questions? So just advertisement from my side. Today, we released a blog post that I wrote about things that happened at AsyncAPI in May. So you might like to have a look, especially like Mark, you're thinking about fixes to bindings. Like now bindings are not only described as with Markdown, but you can also provide, like we expect JSON schemas, for example. So yeah. Anything else? No? 3, 2. Thanks a lot for joining another meeting in 2 weeks. We're starting holidays, so don't expect much, at least for me, during this time. But anyway, have a good one. Cheers.
Thank you, folks. See you around. Bye-bye.